So welcome everyone. I'm very happy to open this new panel discussion of the Sake Future Summit. Due to special circumstances, this session had to be recorded a few days before the summit. I am Sébastien, one of your regular hosts on Sake on Air, and I will be the MOC. For the next 45 minutes or so, we are going to France, my home country. I do not think that I need to dwell on France's reputation as a country of refined cuisine, as well as terroir for some of the most sought after wines. The subtle art of eating and drinking and pairing the two together started to develop about 200 years ago at the court of France and then in Parisian restaurants. As a matter of fact, these adopted the Russian style of service where dishes are brought to the table sequentially as opposed to together at once. The sake industry has been trying to be part of the upper echelons of Western dining for a number of years. There, it has to, well, compete with or complement the wine world. Can sake find a position at the top and be part of these exclusive experiences? And how do we get sake there? To discuss that topic, I'm very pleased to receive two gentlemen, two sommeliers who all worked at some of the most prestigious Michelin-starred restaurants and honed their skills next to famous chefs, and actually conversely as well. And they happen to love sake. Marco Pelletier is from Quebec originally. After training as a sommelier and working as a sommelier, he is traveling quite a bit overseas to host wine-related events and is now producing his own wine. In 2016, Marco opened Ventre. Ventre is a Parisian bistro which is known for offering an amazing wine selection. Actually, Ventre is one of the 5 addresses in Paris that received a Grant Award from Wine Spectator. And then I have Xavier Tuizat, the head sommelier at prestigious Hotel de Crillon, Place de la Concorde in Paris. And in the world of sake, Xavier is already well known as the president of Master. Master is a sake competition taking place in Paris since 2017. Xavier was awarded the Sake Samurai title a few weeks ago by the Sake Brewers Association Junior Council. Before I give you the floor, gentlemen, I want to really thank you for being here and taking the time to be part of the Sake Future Summit in this very difficult period that your businesses are going through at the moment. Because of the lockdown, Ventre or Hotel de Crillon cannot operate, and you have to manage a crisis situation. So thank you for being here. I'm going to let you maybe introduce yourself a little bit more. In particular, I'm very curious to find out about your relationship with sake. Who wants to start?
To Marco, no? Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Sébastien, for the opportunity for us to speak about sake. For me, Japanese sake started in 2012 with Pierre Gagnère, chef, and with a specific dish with oursin. It's a famous part of the Pierre Gagnère cuisine, and with the oursin, it was my first pairing with Japanese sake, and after I was in love of this beverage. I find all the opportunity that Japanese sake proposes with French cuisine, and I start from here to learn sake and to develop my knowledges on this beverage.
Yeah, and but thank you all to the people that will listen this podcast. So we are very pleased, Xavier and I, to be part of it for sure. And the sake, it's a whole very complex world for sure. So in differences to Xavier, for me, it's more a context that really brought me in love because I have the privilege of age in opposite to Xavier. I had the chance of being in Japan a few times for when I was working at the Bristol and things like that. And for me, it was more a matter of context, not knowing that culture and arriving over there and discovering a different food. Of course, we have Japanese food in France, but it will never be as compared to the precision and the freshness of the product that we have in Japan. And I started actually with pretty basic sake, which for me was different since I was in an all different world. For me, the fact of not necessarily comparing it to wines because there was no wines available, and I was like immersed in the culture. And for me, it was more a love at first sight with sake, which for me was very important because I was really immersed. And for me, the context was really, really important. I didn't know sake back then. Probably the first one I drank back then was not necessarily a great one, but the whole context and things like that really brought me into, and I think it's a very addictive beverage. It's one of the most purest beverage in the world because it's only, not all of them, but some of them are pasteurized. So there's no addition of sulfur like in the wine and things like that. So for me, it's one of the most purest beverage in the world. And I'm always amusing myself to say, when you start to smell a sake, you put the nose, the arm, the head, and all the body inside because it becomes so addictive. So that's why this is my relation with sake today.
So I know that you have some good sake, actually a number of sake at your on your list at Ventre, Marco. So maybe Xavier, how do we get sake to more tables in France, or more exclusive tables in France? Maybe you want to share some of your slides and thoughts about it?
Of course. Okay. Is it okay for you? Okay, perfect. So let's start and let's talk about this really interesting question, Sebastian, and we try to ask with Marco about this amazing proposition. So in France, we have a different story. Of course, France is still different because we are a country very specific because we have a large culture and a large history of table, of wine. Champagne was born here, Bordeaux is here, Burgundy, all the most famous wine in the world come from France. Not necessarily only France, but everything starts from France. And for French people, this is the most complex thing. It's to propose Japanese sake to French people. So we are a country of history. We are a country of culture of table. And our mission is to say Japanese sake is a part of the culture of table. And if we bring Japanese sake slowly to the table by the cuisine, by the way of restaurant and cuisine, we can win because French people need repair, need to compare, need to understand with something real. Cuisine is real in front of us, and they have to taste to say, I like that, I like that. So our mission is here, is to speak to the French people with a specific language, to use new words to speak about sake, and more the soul of French people change and is more and more open to something new, specifically the young generation, of course.
How do you do that?
Yeah, and how we do that? Because we have something complex to start in France. It's sake is a bit unknown in France. our guests, our customers, still make confusion between this Chinese distilled beverage, as you can see here on your left, the mutai, and with Japanese sake. So we need to do a lot of pedagogy with our customer. We can say maybe sometimes with Japanese sake, a restaurant can be a school. They have to learn something. They love to learn something. This is the name of the experience of restaurants. So Japanese sake is really a part of the experience, and we have to repeat every day. Japanese sake, it's a beverage. We have this beverage by fermentation, not by distillation. And we have to change the word. For the rice, I use the name of cépage. The toji, I use the name of maître de chai. We speak about terroir because the terroir, this is the river. The soul and the spirit of the sake come from the river, the local river. Pure in Kyoto, more intense, more full in Gifu. So this is a part of terroir. The rice gives the flavors, and the water gives the texture. So it's important to explain clearly the terroir of Japanese sake. But we have a lot of work to do with Japanese sake in France. For example, you have in front of you our main problem, the label. Not necessarily a problem for the guests, but the most important thing is this is a problem for the sommelier. For example, in front of you, we have a label where we can read 65%. I have many sommeliers who say, I don't understand. You say it's a beverage, fermentation beverage, but I read 65% of alcohol. I say, no, it's not alcohol, it's polishing ratio. So that's why it's impossible to read for us. And I suppose that's why sommelier before, a few years before, don't want to work with Japanese sake because it's impossible to understand. So the main work starts with have a label in English or in French. And I think one of the rules of exportation of sake is to have more information in French and in English. Like that, it's easy for us to work. But now it's really complex. We have few sake that we have the label in French. For example, we can speak about Madame Sake. She proposed, she import Japanese sake with a French label. So it's easy, but it's a little part of Japanese sake. So we have to work with that. We have to try to do to the producer to make his label, the label in English, minimum.
more accessible to the to not only the customers but the sommelier. That's a very important point that you mentioned.
Customers, they don't have to read, I say, because this is the job of the sommelier to explain, to promote, and to propose. But if the sommelier doesn't understand, we have no chance. So this is, I think, the best starter.
So, Marco, a question for you is: what type of sake do you think suits the French palate or the Western palate? Because you're operating in New York as well.
Yeah, but there's two different approach. Of course, in the Western, the new, what we call the New World, for example, North America, definitely it's not the same approach because definitely, of course, United States, they are producing wine, but they're not, increased in the heaviness of the tradition and things like that. So definitely they are more open to trying something new. That's for sure. We are even seeing it with foreigner wine, South African wine, and everything. It's already a open-minded. So the culture of sake over there, it's already there in terms of more as a usual product, because there's not a lot of sommeliers that are like super pro on sake and are defending. They have a great sake list or something like that. But the accessibility of the product, it's way more important than us in France. In France, we are a little bit more conservative, so that's a different approach. So as we were saying a little bit earlier, comparison, I think it's the worst thing we can do. Every time in my restaurant I propose sake, the only thing I say to the people, I said, don't even compare to a wine, because the French palate are more adapted to acidity, natural acidity. Italian is more to bitterness. So all country have their own sensibility to different product, food or alcoholic beverages, but it's definitely a different approach, because the French palate are really into acidity, and for me acidity, it's the extreme opposite of sake, which is the perfect comfort in mouth. No acidity, very round, very soft. Xavier was talking about the texture about which is mostly brought by the water. If it's more limestone, it's more clay. So that's give all the different things, but you will never see high acidity in sake. So that's why we need to say, that's our first job, is to say to the people, just try this and you'll see, just not to anything else. And one of the main way to reach that, it's sometimes to do blind taste. Blind taste for me in my restaurant is something very important. You have a specific dish, or you were talking about a sea urchin a little bit earlier, Xavier. If you have like a very simple dish, but with a high degrees of freshness, and you just bring little glasses, blind taste, just taste that and let me know. People are not, comparing or saying, is it a Chablis, is it something? And I think that this is one of the key to really reach the sensibility of each person by not knowing what they have in front of them. So after that, of course, our job is to come very rapidly and to talk with them and to explain, to exchange with them. And of course, there's so many different types of sake, so you cannot please everyone. For me, I know that I prefer the purest Jumai Daiginjo. This is the one I like. The other one, and I didn't reach the point of knowing enough the warm sake. So that's a whole different culture, but we're getting there. You don't need to be the best professional of sake in the world to defend and to go see the people and to bring that amazing product on the table.
And clearly, from what you're explaining to us here, putting sake at the top does not necessarily mean focusing on daiginjos or Junmai daiginjos.
No, not at all.
Interesting.
No, because in Japan we feel and we imagine daiginjo is the highest level in terms of polishing, yes, but in terms of combination with French cuisine, daiginjo it's the best way just for a part of French cuisine, but not necessary for all the texture. For example, we need Kimoto, we need Yamahai to make great pairing, but we can see after. But I agree with Marco. Daiginjo is not only the highest way.
No, of course, you have some different approach. You have some that is pasteurized, not non-filtered, fortified, not fortified. So there's a whole different range of sake that exists in the world. And as Xavier said, the French cuisine versus the Japanese cuisine, it's completely different. Japanese cuisine, it's more about purity, freshness of product, minimum transformation. In France, we were into a war for many years, so we needed to adapt that food by cooking something that you will never think of eating, by mijoter, long sauce, and things like that. So French, it's a culture of transformation, complexity through transformation. Japanese, it's complexity through purity of product, which we always have to keep that in mind. And of course, there's so much range of sake different that we are saying that you will find your own, but this is the way you go slowly by your knowledge about sake. And after that, you know the one you prefer. And after that, you need to have a good professional to lead you on the good sake regarding the dish you have in front of you.
You mentioned modern or traditional process. What do you mean? It's a question mark, so it means both are
yeah.
possible, or?
Yeah, Daiginjo and Ginjo was started around middle of 70s. So it's not so old. And this is a modern style, because modern style, it's Ginjo Daiginjo, so pure, delicate, and elegant. Traditional process, it's when we use Kimoto and Yamahai style process, so without lactic acid. So lactic acid comes from slowly. In modern style, we had lactic acid immediately, so that's why we preserve the freshness. But we have a part of auxiliary paste, we can say, with a traditional process, Kimoto Yamahai. So that's why we separate both, because it's totally different in the process. So traditional process like to be warm. Japanese people love this way of sake, but yeah, we have to separate. And for me, it's important to teach to the customer. We have two main styles in Japanese sake.
Have you already offered a warm sake experience to your clients
Yes.
at Hôtel de Crillon?
Yes. Usually it's at this period, November, December, when it's cold outside. We love to enjoy a glass of sake hot. For example, with it was a foie gras poêlé, hot foie gras cooked in a bouillon of Réfort. It's fantastic, with a Kimoto style, a bit warm, but my best temperature is 35 degrees, no more. And just to speak about the France, and is it the best country for nihonshu? I can say probably yes, because we are famous for restaurants. So restaurant is the best place to speak about sake in France. It's a place not necessarily where we eat and drink. We meet people, we speak with people, we learn something, we open mind with the spirit of the chef or our proposition, and guests love to learn something when they go to the restaurant. So it's close to be a religion restaurant in France. And that's why I use the term sommelier have the power to evangelize sake to their customer at the restaurant. So we are not at the church, but I speak about evangelize. I think it's a good word because sommelier sell what he want to sell and what he love. We are maybe the mirror or the reflection of our experience, our own experience. So we have to speak about that with the guests, and guests love that.
What you're saying is, even beyond, not only through explaining sake, but by sharing your own experience with the sake, you have the power to convince people to try as well.
Guests love that, love to discuss about that. Why you propose sake? Because I went in sake, I met the producer, and we tell the story. And this is a fantastic experience for the guests. We create, as you can see, emotion and new experience with Japanese sake pair with French cuisine. And for us, it's sometimes a key. Japanese sake, when wine fails with specific texture of cuisine, sake succeeds. For example, dish with bitterness, with sour flavors, with vegetable marinated in vinegar, with eggs, with soup. The white wine is not. Il est pas à l'aise. Is not
comfortable with it.
Merci, Marco. Not comfortable with it. So Japanese sake can do the job, and that's why we have a new key with Japanese sake. What do you think, Marco?
No, I think it's great because I think we'll be much complementary to what you just said in terms of texture and the great key to matching. But I'll be more practical because this is what the people also. It's maybe less interesting, but it's the way of we can see how we can promote it, sake, because as we all know, wine, sake. It's an expensive hobby. We don't go to the restaurant and buy a bottle of sake at 150 euro. I'll try that one. So this is where Xavier, me, and all the professionals arrive, because we have the chance of having a lot of different clients. We have places where people comes to drink, and I think by proposing wine or sake by the glass, it's a great playground for people, for the customer that comes, because they don't have to, because if they open a sparkling sake and they decided that finally I'm not a big fan or something like that, but they have to stay with the bottle. So when you're in your comfort zone, you're Bordelais and you drink a bottle of Félon Ségur, you know what you're having. So this is why a lot of people are sometimes not comfortable to go trying something new, because it's an expensive hobby. So in the restaurant, when you have trusting people like the sommelier that you can trust, they won't profit of you, and they say, taste that. I have to. You don't like the Jumai Ginjo? We're gonna do Kimoto. We can do a lot of things. The restaurant. It's an amazing playground for us, professional, but mostly for our clientele, because we have a range of proposing a lot of different things. And as you know, if Xavier have a great client and he decide to open a little bit more expensive sake, he knows that he will be able to sell like that. But you won't have the impression that you have to do the whole bottle. So the range of doing multiple experiences in restaurant, in addition to the texture, as Xavier really said it right, the texture and the whole experimentation, you don't have to impose yourself too much thing.
Is it hard to convince the chefs? Because you're proposing pairings to your customers. What about your conversations with the chefs?
Go ahead, Xavier.
More and more, chefs change mind, because they want to explore more. For example, I speak about my experience with Pierre Gagnère. It's a bit specific chef in France, because very creative. So when we propose something new to the chef, he loves that. But at the opposition, some chefs don't want to change and are a bit afraid by Japanese sake. They said, "But why you propose sake with my cuisine? I don't understand." So we have to explain that to the chef. I think Japanese sake can make beautiful things if we have the combination between the sommelier and the chef together. It's very important, because if you have only the sommelier and the chef is not agree, it's complex. But we have to speak about the chef, to say it's a great beverage, the future of your beverage for your cuisine. And Pierre Gagnère tasted some Japanese sake, because he has a restaurant in Tokyo also. And sometimes he starts to create a dish with the aromatic flavors of Japanese sake in his mind, and he can reproduce that in a plate. So it's beautiful to work like that. But now the next step after the sommelier is to speak with the chef, because it's not.
Yeah, that's a whole different things. This is why. But this is more specific to our industry, but we won't bore the people with that. But it's just that we have to bring back restaurants as 50% food and 50% service. Never forget that. That's for me the whole experience. And we have still, in a conservative country like France, we still have too much people that thinks their dish are perfect, and the sommelier have to deal with it. That's it. And this is most of the, sorry to be more down to earth, but this is mostly of the of the restaurant, mostly in the high, like starred Michelin and things like that. And this is where we had that discussion last week with Xavier, and I think that where wine pairing, sake pairing, experimentation, trying new things. I think it's really in the bistronomie, in the little restaurant that all these young, I'm not talking about me, but all these young people are created. And I think they are more decomplexed with all trying new things. And this is what makes you vibration, because if you do the same thing for many years and to try new things, maybe it's not always perfect, but trying new recipe, to try, talking with a sommelier, talking with a great maître d'hôtel that really knows his product and things like that. It feeds yourself, even if you're a chef, because we all have different experience. We all have different approach. So you can always learn from other people. And here at the restaurant, we have a Japanese a Japanese chef. Sorry, we have a Canadian in the dining room. We have a woman from Algeria in the dining room. And this is how it goes today. And we don't have all these very heavy conservative approach. And this is where I think more and more of our clientele are really fitting themselves with these new generations that are arriving.
Xavier, do you want to give us some examples, some of your?
Of course. For us, it's time to lunch in France, so
I'm suddenly salivating.
So, as you said, Marco, you're right, because Japanese cuisine is very pure and sophisticated, elegant, pure. And in France, we like butter. We like something more rich. So that's why we don't have the same level of idea of best sake for cuisine. I understand why Daiginjo is the best pairing for the Japanese people, because in Japan, the food is a total adequation. In France, as you can see, we propose different things. It's just an example, of course, to make Japanese sake pairing. With a tartare of langoustine here on your top left, perfect match with Daiginjo style, fresh, pure. We have some agrimas. It's perfect to start a great dish. As I talked a few minutes ago, the famous cook foie gras. So we have the possibility to serve warm sake with this kind of texture, very smooth. And when we serve a warm sake at 35 degrees, we have more and more sugar and more glycerol, we can say. So it's a perfect combination with the foie gras. After, of course, all the sake junmai or low polishing ratio or high, it depends, but like a 70% ratio, we can use meat, veal, for example, here, and mushroom. We love the mushroom with the Kimoto style because we have the earthy flavors in Kimoto style to make a pairing with the earthy flavors of mushroom. Of course, cheese, it's a big part of our culture in France, and we can say we don't touch to the cheese. It's, of course, wine. But with the cheese, we have different kind of milk. The goat cheese. We can use a fresh Japanese sake Daiginjo style with goat cheese, and with the cow cheese, use maybe more like a Yamahai, for example. And koshu. If we want to have a story, I have a great memory with a guest. I serve a cheese experience in my former restaurants, and I say, blind tasting, as you say, Marco, I served yellow wine, vin jaune from Jura Château Chalon. I serve a Rérès, Amontillado, and I serve a koshu of 1992. And I said to the guest, with your cheese, it was a different kind of cheese. I say, which wine do you prefer? Which thing do you prefer? It takes a 3 glasses. So it's very complex. It's beautiful. We have an oxidation taste on the three beverages, and I say, please find the beverage who is made without grape. It's impossible. We have a glass in this three made with rice. He said it's impossible. So we keep the surprise, and we have a great emotion with the cheeses. And to finish, a Shochu or old sake with Mont Blanc is very interesting, and also the Shochu, the sweet sake with Saint-Honoré, our famous traditional dessert here in France. So you have here a complete French menu, and we can pair with different kind of sake. So at every moment, French sommelier can sell a glass, can propose an upselling to sell one glass from the starter to the dessert. So it's an important point, I think.
Indeed. Yeah, one of the questions that I have for you, Xavier, and thank you for preparing this slide, is obviously you're managing wine cellars and very long wine list at your restaurants and hotels, and clearly I can see, I can feel that managing a sake list is something special and something different.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I made many mistakes. For example, I bought like wine, 24 bottles, 12 bottles. It's a big mistake. Because Marco, you said you have to preserve freshness in the sake. But when we buy many sake, sometimes it takes time to sell everything. So between the first bottle and the last one, you have a difference of maybe 3, 4, 6 months, 9 months. It's possible, we never know, if you have different sake. So I propose a list of 5 sake, 6 sometimes, no more, and I buy 6 by 6 each varieties. Like that, I can manage my selling and and in the same time my purchasing to preserve the freshness of Japanese sake. So first of all, you have to have a fridge in your restaurant, 5 degrees no more, and I use vacuvin, for example, to preserve the Japanese sake for 3 days. But the most important thing is to say to your boss, I buy sake for my upselling. So buy 6 by 6. This is the best way, and a short selection, 5, 6 sake. You can change every month if you want, or every 2 months. It depends, but like that, you keep your sake in security. You preserve the best way of yeah.
And if I'm correct, 5 degrees Celsius means that you need a special fridge, or at least a dedicated space within your fridge. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's dedicated space, but you can, for me, for example, I tell you everything. I keep my sake with my water fridge. So I have a big fridge for water, so I keep in a specific place my Japanese sake in the water fridge. So yeah, this is important. It's important. Marco, do you how many sake do you have at the same time by the glass or on your list?
On the list, I have around 15. It depends of the period of the year. But by the glass, we are a very small restaurant. We have only one place where we sell wine. So usually I have never no more than 2. Usually it's 1 or 2. We have one that I like, which is very comfortable, not too complex and things like that I really love. And I don't hesitate to open something that I like a little bit more if I have some more specific people that wants to discover about something different. That's really for me the maximum I can do to provide the top quality of the sake of the serving. Of course, 5 degrees of Celsius, that's the perfection. Of course, if the people that are listening to us, they keep it at 8, it won't kill your sake. You know, it will. The best thing for me, it's mostly oxidation. We already had that discussion with Xavier about aging sake. So we all have our different approach on this, but I think the only thing that the temperature will do to your sake, it will maybe accelerated the oxidation and the evolution of your sake, which for some people they like aged sake. For me, I'm not always I won't make me some good friend today, but I'm not always a good fan about aging sake. So that's why I'm doing exactly the same thing than Xavier. So I buy no more, by 3 or 6, and I keep, and right next to the water bottle for me in the fridge, it's the same thing. Sometimes I mix up everything because sake is so good that you can drink it like water. So that's a different thing. But
it's a 75 or 80% water anyway.
Exactly.
And do you have maybe, Marco, just like that, a name of sake or house of sake you like, or which kind of
sake? For me, I'm always coming back to the same one. For me, one of my favorite, and I'm very addictive to it. It's the Jikon. Jikon for me, it's really what I prefer. There's maybe more expensive, more sophisticated, or things like that, but this is what for me the Jikon sake from the Mi region, which is it's a very limestone water. So for me, it's really the impression that I have when I drink that type of sake. It's a little bit like when you go in the forest and you drink water from a river. For me, it's rocks water, and for me, I think it's one of the most addictive sensation that you can have. So that's why I'm very stick to that house, and I'm a super fan. Yeah.
This particular sake can be quite hard to find even in Japan, which brings a question to my mind. It's about price. I mean, I know that in France the price of sake is is definitely higher than in Japan, and you have a multiple because of transportation, duties, and trade margins. But overall, sake tends to be much cheaper, or is offered at a lower price than top wine in France. Is it an asset? Is it an advantage for sake in the context of fine dining in the Western world, or does it come with some constraints because maybe you make lower margins, or any thoughts about that?
No, it definitely be a great advantage, Fred, because even if we work in Palace or things like that, you don't sell Petrus at 15,000 euro every day. It doesn't happen. It happens once in a while. But for the professional, the greatest advantage is for the professional to have. For me, the sake that I'm talking to you about, it's a bottle that I paid maybe 25 or 26 euro, which is a great sake, which is not insane, and you're able to have fun with these products by saying it's all depend of how you bring that's why we are ambassador. We are sommelier, of course, but we are ambassador of all the wines, the sake that we like. So it all depends of how you present the thing. For me, in France, it's different. For example, the Jikon sake that I was talking about, I remember not long ago, I had a Japanese writer that comes to the restaurant, and she comes down to the wine cellar, and she said, Jikon, I'm not even able to find one bottle in Japan. So it gives you the idea. And when you say that to the club, oh yeah, that's true. It can be rare. It's not only like the little thing that it all depends of how you bring the story to the people. There's no need. It's important if people wants to know more, but there's no need to go in all the technical stuff for the first approach, for the first love insight or love at first sight for the sake. After that, when people are getting interested to it, you go further in your explanation and exchange.
Actually, Onishi-san is one of the guests of the Sake Future Summit, so we'll listen to this particular discussions during this 30-hour marathon. Maybe one last question is about the service or the code of serving sake. Thank you for preparing these elements.
Because don't be afraid to decant a Japanese sake. Sometimes we say, I don't see why, but me, I understand when I tasted sake during a dinner, that it was more interesting at the end of the meal. So I say, okay, I understand that. Sake, some sake, maybe like the Kimoto style, need oxygen. So you have to decant sake. It's a part of the show in a restaurant, but not only the show, because it's really important. We have a different experience when we decant sake. Of course, we propose the sake by the glass only, but why not? Why not at the start of the service, maybe close to 8 o'clock, sorry, go in the room and decant a glass of sake, put the bottle in the middle of the dining room, and you put in a beautiful ice bucket and serve by carve our guest. It's maybe a part of to boost your selling in sake. But the glasses also is important. I don't want to taste Japanese sake in a hot choco, because I think we lose many flavors. We need the glass of wine to give more flavors, more intense flavors, more complexity. Japanese sake, again, need oxygen and need a great glass. Marco, you serve your Japanese sake in wine glass?
Yes, for most of what we had, I don't have the over fortified sake here at the restaurant. So for me, the only thing I because when you have a wine glasses which is the chimney, it's a little bit small. So if you have higher degrees of alcohol, you can feel a little bit more. But for me, I have most of it. I have like pretty managed degrees of alcohol. So I think you're totally right by serving it in wine glasses. This is way the best experience to have. After that, all different. You know, we cannot ask today in Tokyo to all the izakaya restaurant to change their glass, to bring wine glasses. So I think there's some folkloric glass for many reasons, like the Alsatian glass with the green. I think it's probably the worst glass in the world for wine, but it's part of the tradition. So the experimentation is different. When you really go into the learning process and things like that, you're totally right. The wine glasses, it's the perfect example. But if it's just at the end of the evening to drink glasses and to have fun with people, sometimes you have the traditional glasses. So that's why we never have to forget that the whole protocol of tradition, for me, I think it's something very important, and I want to stick to it also a little bit.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time here and all this content that you've given to us. I mean, there were quite a few takeaways from that about the role of sommelier to bring sake to the top in the Western dining experience, and this discussion about using wine codes, but at the same time not comparing with wine and doing a lot of work in terms of education. I think that's really one of your key points, isn't it?
Marco, or so yeah, the key point, of course, to finish, it's to promote all the kind of sake, all different kind of sake, is to promote the pairing, is to promote the way of use this beverage at your home, not only because restaurant is the first step, and after the most important is to continue at home. When you have some friends at home, you can say to your guest, use a bottle of sake with your seafood or something like that to put Japanese sake not only in restaurants but after at home. And this is the next step. But for sure, the most important way for the moment is to promote Japanese sake by a restaurant, of course.
Yeah, definitely. This is the way. And what we have to do today, it's to bring all our experience to the benefit of the client. And today, it's promote simplicity, promote fun, promote drinking. This is, you know, what is the most important thing. About after that, when you get addictive to all these great, amazing historical products, you go further. You want to learn by yourself, but just fun, pleasure. That's the most important thing in terms of wine. So that's for me the best thing.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think it concludes our session about putting sake at the top with your experience as wine sommelier in France. And we'll be back soon with a new session.